Alright, how's it going everyone? As you know, I am in my 30s and I've only recently started learning about politics, which is very strange because you would assume you know that by my age. But guess what? I'm above it, above average intelligence. I'm educated. I have a master's degree. I understand how databases work and how to develop websites. I understand, psychology, human psychology. I understand how video games are made, but I don't understand how a toilet works. If you think about it, you might not know the answer to that. But I don't know how politics works. I don't know about a political system. When I was given time for kids as a, elementary school student, I didn't really understand what I was reading. And to be honest, I come from the state of Hawaii, which is very apathetic when it comes to politics. And in terms of voting, it's a historically blue state with two electoral votes, I believe. And so I guess most politicians don't even bother coming by. So this is a new journey for me. I'm very glad to be on it. I'm also very glad to be doing it at my age, because if I was maybe being indoctrinated into maybe my parents' or friends' political beliefs when I was young, I wouldn't have the ability to think for myself. So since I'm being introduced now as a grown man, I can think for myself and I can see flaws where there are flaws. I can see bias where there's bias. And more importantly, I see something that can be beneficial to other people like myself, and that is there's a middle ground. All right. How is it that one side of a issue is feels they're right and the other person's wrong? The other side feels they're right and the other side is wrong. The truth lies somewhere in between. Okay, so I definitely don't want to bore you and I don't want to mislead you, so I'm going to do a very as objective a look I can at the topics of left and right, as well as liberal and conservative. They're very heavily related to also Democratic and Republican parties in America, but I'm not going to bore you with that. Trust me. But it's also important because you'll never hear the definitions from the news sites. It's just what people go to. I already talked about bias in another video. And yes, the people that go to those sites are already biased. And in a way, the news sites are kind of just preaching to the choir. It's kind of like they're giving what the people want to read. All right. And as for me, I'm just here to learn. Here to learn, try to be objective. So before we even talk about any political terms, we have to approach this from I guess, a more foundational level, which is psychology. Now, the beauty of psychology is that we are all susceptible to it. I don't care if you are some dude living in the United States like me, or you are a person selling tea as a chaiwala in a rural part of India and you watch Bollywood movies. I don't care who you are. You still have, or your actions or your mental makeup, how you think, is heavily defined by human psychology. That's universal. And that's why also when we look across the world, different parties, they'll sort of resemble each other. We don't necessarily want to just say there's just two, right? Left and right. There's a lot of in between and a lot of different views that don't necessarily should be lumped up, but are lumped up because there's only room for so many parties, right? But all of that is heavily influenced by personality. And, personality actually has, I'm going to lean back a bit. I went on a bike ride earlier. Poor Ben. Anyway, personality, people have been trying to really kind of categorize folks since forever, right? the zodiac. I think it was from the Middle East somewhere or something, 500 BC. That's meant for personality. The Chinese have their lunar calendar. They have the elements and all that. They have what else do we have? We have Myers-Briggs, which is from the 1950s, but surprise, it's actually not scientifically developed. All right, it was kind of, in a way, it's kind of arbitrary. I mean, it was kind of more of a theory than actually scientifically substantiated. So there's a major flaw to that. But I think all of them are great because of what they were trying to do, which is trying to observe, well, hey, there are differences in how people act and behave, but those differences, we can also see them across, various people. And so the Big Five is a very recent, one of the most recent, and it's the most scientifically accepted one because it is, it was developed and tested using the scientific method. You can read more about it if you want to. Again, it's a theory because we can ever, see a personality in the same way we might be able to see, I don't know, someone with a heart murmur or a torn ACL. We can't see personality, but through data and research, we can see there's, trends supporting this idea. And with the Big Five, it's basically 5 different traits. I'm going to zoom in. Openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism. All right. It's pretty complicated, but basically boils down to, are you okay with trying, seeing, meeting new people? That's the most important trait we're going to talk about. Conscientiousness is kind of has to do with being a hard worker. Extroversion, introversion, that's I think one that a lot of personality tests will agree to. Okay, and the rest you can look up on your own, but I want to look at openness to experience because there was a TED Talk I saw, amazing TED Talk, and this person, actually I only saw it last year or this year, I forget, but he was, well, let's listen, he's trying to connect.
First guy, we'll call him Adam,
that's
transfixed by the beauty of the perfect human form. Second guy, we'll call him Bill, is transfixed by embarrassment of staring at the thing there in the center.
What he just talked about.
So here's my question for you.
PhD in psychology.
Which one of these two guys is more likely to have voted for George Bush, which for Al Gore?
Both
I don't need to show of hands because we all have the same political stereotypes. We all know that it's Bill. And in this case, the stereotype corresponds to a reality. It really is a fact that liberals are much higher than conservatives on a major personality trait called openness to experience. People who are high on openness to experience just crave novelty, variety, diversity, new ideas, travel.
Okay, that sounds a lot like me. Now, one interesting thing I learned about this, I talked to this person at work. He's actually a client of the company I work for. Amazing guy. I love talking with him. Have so much in common with him. But he defines himself as a religious conservative, which are two things I would never describe myself as. I don't have religion. What you call that? You don't have an atheist. I understand the importance of religion because religion is essentially philosophy. Plus a bit of, explanation and mythology. But I don't personally subscribe to it. And I'm not a conservative because I would definitely say I'm more liberal. And I mean, I like trying new things. When I've been ordering Uber Eats to help out some local restaurants because it's coronavirus time, right? And when I do, I don't care to order something I know is I just have to. There's something in me that just craves, let me just do this, Uber Eats roulette type of thing. And sometimes I regret it, but I just have that craving to do so. I love travel as well. I love dating women of different cultures. I like eating different things. I like traveling to different places. I like all sorts of things. I'm okay with seeing new things. And this person at work, he defined himself as a conservative, and he defines it by saying he does not necessarily like change. All right, he's okay with change, but not change for the sake of change. And that's very interesting.
People low on it like things that are familiar.
We'll talk about how that might connect to
safe and dependable.
Just in a bit.
If you know about this trait, you can understand a lot of puzzles about human behavior. You can understand why artists are so different from accountants. You can actually predict what kinds of books they like to read, what kinds of places they like to travel to, and what kinds of food they like to eat. Once you understand this trait, you can understand why anybody would eat at Applebee's, but not anybody that you know.
We do become more conservative, less open to experience.
This trait also tells us a lot about politics. The main researcher of this trait, Robert McCrae, says that open individuals have an affinity for liberal, progressive, left-wing political views. They like a society which is open and changing. Whereas closed individuals prefer conservative, traditional, right-wing views.
What if that personality trait
This trait also tells us a lot about the kinds of groups people join. So here's a description of a group I found on the web. What kinds of people would join a global community welcoming people from every discipline and culture who seek a deeper understanding of the world and who hope to turn that understanding into a better future for us all? From some guy named Ted.
Somewhat reasonable, well-spoken. They have some interesting points. I don't agree with them 100%.
If openness predicts who becomes liberal,
one of them is,
and openness predicts who becomes a Tedster,
what? I won't name them.
Then might we predict that most Tedsters are liberal?
They have an interesting quote I've heard a couple
Let's
times.
find out. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand whether you are liberal, left of center on social issues we're talking about primarily, or conservative, and I'll give a third option because I know there are a number of libertarians in the audience.
If you don't die
so right now, please raise your hand.
And the whole idea behind that
too.
is
that let everybody see who's here. Please raise your hand if you would say that you are liberal or left of center. Please raise your hand high right now.
Right.
Okay.
That benefits people.
Please raise your hand if you say you're libertarian.
Everyone deserves health care. Everyone deserves
about a 2 dozen.
Everyone deserves
and please raise your hand if you say you are right of center or conservative.
Everyone deserves a livable wage. Everyone deserves a car.
10.
Everyone deserves public transportation. Everyone deserves
This is a bit of a problem.
Everyone deserves a home.
Because if our goal is to understand the world, to seek a deeper understanding of the world, our general lack of moral diversity here is going to make it harder. Because when people all share values, when people all share morals, they become a team. And once you engage the psychology of teams, it shuts down open-minded thinking.
When we get older, I believe that saying has been
when the liberal team loses,
as
it did in 2004 and as it almost did in 2000, we comfort ourselves.
That's kind of true.
We try to explain why half of America voted for the other team. We think they must be blinded by religion or
when we look at
by simple
aging,
stupidity.
And once we start living through life and we start experiencing reality and living amongst people, that's when we start to get balance, right? Where our ideologies, which are not based in reality, right?
So if you think that half of America votes Republican because they are blinded in this way, then my message to you is that you're trapped in a moral matrix, in a particular moral matrix. And by the matrix, I mean literally the matrix like the movie, The Matrix. But I'm here today to give you a choice.
I'm not saying
you can either take the blue pill and stick to your comforting delusions, or you can take the red pill, learn some moral psychology, and step outside the moral matrix. Now, because I know... Okay, I assume that answers my question. I was going to ask you which one you picked. No need, you're all high in openness to experience, and besides, it looks like it might even taste good, and you're all epicures. So anyway.
Okay. So if you want to watch that video, Jonathan Holt, it's a pretty good one. And, he's not a political guy. If it was a political guy talking about this, I wouldn't listen because political people, they know politics. They like talking about politics. They understand world politics. But they don't necessarily get at why some people lean a certain way, why people lean another way. And that's very frustrating for me as someone that wants to look at it at a holistic level. And so once we talk about that, then we can start talking about left and right, finally, right? So these are terms that I've picked up recently as well. And basically it comes down to, that openness to experience that is left. My left. Fraternity, rights, progress, reform, and the main one is progress. The main word is progress. So at this point you can start kind of saying, because it's so confusing when you're starting off, right? There's so many different terms, but pretty much being left is is on with progress and progressive, and what else terms we have? Yeah, being open to experience, liberal, okay, and open to change. While the right is more law and order, tradition, less change. Why change? Conservative. And what's the last one? Liberal and conservative. Right, liberal and conservative. Mostly Republican Party would identify with that. And of course, there's always in between. But when we talk about polarized ends, those are the items there. And so that's what left and right means. Now, the best way to understand these is by looking at the extremes. And so it's actually says right here, regard the left as anarchist, communist, socialist. Okay, and we see that right now. I mean, it's easier if you look at the extreme. So extreme leftists, by the way, I do not trust any extremist. I think if you are extreme, you have, or you're a radical, you have difficulties understanding viewpoints from other folks. There's actually a study out there showing that people who are radical, even when presented with evidence contradicting their views, they continue to believe their views. That's the dangerous part of being a radical. Whereas for normal people, we are able to change our views based on, evidence presented to us, or maybe someone pointing to us that we have bias. A lot of that is happening right now with regards to police brutality and, systemic racism against black folks, and perceptions and associations of criminality, or less educated or less competent if you're black. And we won't talk about other stereotypes, including Asian folks, right? But yeah, that's like the extreme. So on the left side, an extreme would be anarchist, communist, socialist. Now, socialism is kind of thrown around like it's the end of society or something. But actually, a lot of Scandinavian countries, they already have a form of democratic socialism. So they still elect their folks, but there's a high level of tax, and with the tax, it's like up to 50, 60, 70% tax. And with that tax, high level of tax, right? In America, I think the highest level is 35%. And there's all sorts of favorable tax breaks that come and go, right? So President Trump put it in, but with the next president, who may not be Trump, they may go. And so these democratic socialist countries, they will use that to provide universal health care. What else? Free college. What else? Their prison system is more based on reforming and rehabbing a person's mind, rather than in America, where it's punitive, right? And sometimes it's kind of based on policy or quotas. War on crime or war on drugs. Well, arrest as many people as you can. That's how they determine that they're doing a good job with the war. And we end up people in prison for selling weed, smoking weed. That makes no sense. I'm a fan of law and order, but you have to get the right people, not potheads. Okay. But yeah, democratic socialism, that's so it's not a radical idea. We already see it, and they're a prosperous country, and they're literally rated based on several surveys as the happiest people. All right, when you have all those things taken care of. All right, because our prisons are like more like quarantine, which is messed up. Don't go to prison, kids. In America, anyway. So that's on the left side, right? It's communists, anarchists, people that don't like the system. Remember, with the left, it's all about change, all about being liberal and progressive, and out with the old, in with the new. And when you talk about maybe some things like naming nouns and you know they and there's like 52 or something by now. I don't remember all of them. The pronouns for non-binary people, right? You're not just male or female. But that's definitely a leftist thing, right? They saw this and they wanted to change it to benefit some people, and so that's all of that. The anarchists, you see them also jumping in with the protests. I've recorded some videos as well. They jump in because when it comes to change, that's their game. Anarchists is like they don't like the system. They don't like police because police represent order. Anarchists don't want order. Generally, all right, I don't want to stereotype anarchists. You might be an orderly anarchist. I don't know. But that's the general idea. So when we go to the extreme, we have communists. They're the same. I mean, if you look at the USSR or China, the whole idea was they hated the fact that their country was in shambles. So many people were poor, and yet all these folks were benefiting from the poor people's labor. And so when they had the revolution, that's definitely leftist. They want change. They're going to kill all those educated, wealthy people, teachers even, people that were siding with the old republic. They were all enemies. By the way, communism, it's kind of a failed experiment. I already talked about it. What happens is they overthrow it, and then it's seemingly good, right? It's okay. We vanquished all the evildoers, right? The people that kept us down, the oppressors. And then what happens down the line? The people in power that are trying to enact the communist ideas, those Marxist ideas, they get a little, they'll enjoy their power a little bit. Maybe start getting their friends' positions. Maybe start using it to, find some girlfriends. Or maybe take a little bribe here and there to give a little favor to people trying to make their way up, and lo and behold, what do we have in the end? Same amount of difference in the haves and have-nots, same as before. That's why understanding history is so important. And okay, but let's go to the other end, the far right. On the right, okay. On the far right, again, this is the radical side to give you a better idea of how to understand it all. So that's when we have neoconservatives, imperialists, monarchists, fascists, reactionaries, traditionalists. That one is a little harder to understand, but it definitely comes down to, in some ways, might makes right in some ways. And that's what imperialist means, right? And if you think about it, yeah, I mean, a big part of the left is they don't like imperialism. I literally saw something painted that the U.S. is on stolen land. That's a topic for another discussion, by the way. But that's what it might makes right, and keep things status quo. Is there fascism? Again, this is at the extreme. And what is a reactionary, actually? I've never heard of that before. Okay. But basically, they like things the way they are. And I think also, I've seen a lot of people that maybe they view themselves as individuals that tend to jump to the right, just because with a lot of the left politics today, a lot of it is group, right? It's, I mean, terms like white guilt, you're automatically, if you're white, or I've heard that being Asian, I'm white too. Go figure. All right. Again, I'm neither left or right. I'm right in the middle, and I see flaws with both sides. Never will I ever step in too far in either direction. But it's like a group, your group guilt, and you're responsible for it. Okay? And all black folks or oppressed folks, all of them. And then, of course, the issue is when you're viewing it from an individual perspective, how is it that I walk around Portland, someone might say, we walk around Portland, we'll see all these homeless white folks, and yet we'll also see Jaden Smith, who's son of Will Smith, who's literally gotten movies because he said, Dad, can I get in a movie with Jackie Chan? Or you? Right. So you see the issues there. And it goes back to tribalism. Do you view yourself in a group or an individual? And depending on how you view these politics can or won't make sense. All right. And so that's generally my understanding. I'm not going to give you a professor's view, but that's my understanding of left and right, liberal, conservative, what's that? Liberal, progressive, and just keep things status quo. That's the general idea, and they usually come out in more moderate ways, thankfully, such as, we want abortion, or we don't want abortion, or what else we can think of? Oh, we want to legalize marijuana, or marijuana is a gateway drug, or it should be illegal, right? So that's essentially how it manifests itself in day-to-day, more normal policies that don't involve, overthrowing or conquering other countries or overthrowing systems, right? In the case of left Marxist ideas. Okay, so that is all I have to say about it. If you're learning about this, best of luck. There's a lot of materials to know. I think I provided a very good summary overview. I used to be a teacher, so I definitely can understand how important it is to present ways in an easy to digest way. Okay? Okay. Take care.